last and final speaker for today is Hadrien Croubois, I hope I did this right, from OpenZeppelin.
Thank you. I think this one will be quite short, so then we can all go together and get a drink and finish the discussion there. Unlike most of the speakers before, I'm not building an L2. We are not building an L2. We already have a lot of stuff to do. We are OpenZeppelin, and you might already know us. We are trusted by a lot of these big companies, and our mission is to protect the open economy. And I think this is very important because open economy is not just about Ethereum. It's not just about some project. It's about this entire space. And today, this space goes on to L2. And L2 and other L1s as well. And so the way we protect the open economy right now is mostly through these three aspects of the company that's also expanding, and we are hiring, of course. These aspects are the audits, and we've been auditing a lot of actors in this space, possibly all of them, maybe not. Also through contracts that I'm working on with Friend, who is right here, where we are building open source contracts. We are extending to Cairo, that's coming at a later place in this discussion, and through Defender. And we try to serve all the needs of projects, mostly like DeFi project or like contract-based project, but this also includes like people building L2s. So the first thing I'd like to quickly talk about is Defender. You may not know Defender very well because it's kind of one of the less known products of OpenZeppelin, but it's really, really cool. I encourage you to try it out. And basically, it's your SaaS solution to manage your on-chain activity, manage your contract. And it includes a lot of nice features, like the ability to automatically manage like relaying transaction. You have this Sentinel mechanism that allows you to track activity on chain. You've got Autotask that allows you to trigger activities through a relayer. You can link Sentinel to Autotask to automate stuff, and you can do that cross-chain. So you can have a Sentinel listening on one chain and an Autotasker using a relay executing on another chain. So really, like, we are going into this cross-chain world, providing a lot of tooling for people administrating platforms. We are supporting a lot of networks, most of them, possibly all of them, through the EVM compatibility that they all have. L2s are compatible. We may go further in the future, possibly. We are looking a lot into Cairo, so I don't want to say we are committed to doing that, but stuff could happen. If you have any needs, try Defender out and ask us what you need. Alex, our CTO, is here for the week, so if you want to discuss Defender, you can also discuss Defender. But I'm with Contract, so Contract is our open source solution for building on-chain assets. It's been around for a long time. I think it's the de facto reference for building cross-chain, building smart contract application. And we are continuing this work into the cross-chain world. And this is pretty new. It's something we've been working on lately. And it's just been released as part of 4.6, which is still in a release candidate phase. So it's not completely released yet, but it should be like completely released next week or the week after that, so pretty soon. And we're starting our journey into the cross-chain smart contract world through what we call the cross-chain enabled abstraction. And this is an abstraction that hopefully will allow smart contracts to better recognize that they are being triggered through some cross-chain activity, some cross-chain calls. And this is obviously L1 to L2, but it's also between L1s. So like, we don't really want to distinguish this. Obviously, we all here love L2s, but we also think it's important to have this transparent, whether you're on Optimism or you're on Matic, Polygon proof of stake. The idea behind this cross-chain enable is really to have the ability to discover whether you're being called as part of a cross-chain call, and if that's the case, who is the caller on the other chain. One of the very strong use cases for that is we want our governance contract that we released recently to be able to scale into this world of having a governor contract on Mainnet, maybe take actions on an L2, which could use this mechanism. Or on the other hand, maybe you have a governor on an L2 that is used to do chip voting to govern activity on Mainnet. So you could also use that the other way around. This cross-chain abstraction is used either independently or through our access control mechanism that you may know, which is basically ownable on steroids. We think it's very effective. And we use this aliasing method that a lot of you might know, particularly if you're familiar with Arbitrum. But we don't do that on the address level, we do that on the role. So basically you can write code that requires a function to have, like say, a minter role, and this minter role will be able to be automatically compatible with either intra-chain calls like you used to, or cross-chain calls using this alias role. And so you can very easily differentiate whether an address, which might be the address of a contract or an EOA, is able to perform an action either directly in the same chain or through a cross-chain call. And we do this distinction very importantly because you don't know if the governance of, let's say, a smart wallet will be the same on different chains. One thing we've been discussing internally is the construction between abstract contract and library. And basically, we offer both. We think abstract contracts are easier to work with, but libraries are also more powerful. So for each of the cross-chain enabled we have, and we have this framework available for, as was discussed previously, Arbitrum, Optimism, the AMB bridge, and also Polygon on the root to child direction only for now. And to also offer that so through the cross-chain enabled framework, but also as libraries. This means that you can use these libraries to create new fancy stuff like bridges, like routers, mechanisms that are able to discover multiple bridges. You can be very creative about that. So if you're interested into building like cross-chain communications, things like router for governance that apply on many chains, maybe that's something you might want to check out and try doing a hackathon maybe this weekend. For now, we are just able to receive and identify calls. That's not much, you would say, but emitting is very different and it's very difficult. Obviously, it's something we want to do because we want to improve the way our governors or time locks could trigger execution on a different chain. But we will need to come up with a basically standard API for that, at least internally. And it's difficult because some chains have a lot of parameters that need to be filled when you want to send a transaction. And that can be painful, particularly if your execution is delayed, like in the context of a governor or a time lock. If you need to fill things like, hey, what's the gas price on the L2 chain from the L1 chain? And this execution is delayed by 2 weeks. Then whatever you filled in 2 weeks before needs to still be accurate. So here I would say that as basically we are power users that are trying to get into the L2 world to improve the experience of possibly less experienced user later, we think that here like the less is more point is really important. In French we say le mieux est l'ennemi du bien. So basically when you want to do the best stuff, usually you're fighting against just doing good stuff. And this is an example that you may or may not recognize, but those are functions that some L2s use to send transactions from L1 to L2. And we honestly have no idea how we should fill that, particularly in an automated way. And our opinion is that, yeah, sure, this possibly covers all the use cases if you know what to do, but the simple use cases are very, very easy, very hard to fit into that. And this is where like we have our own opinions that we want to share. Obviously, we are not here to build standards of our own. We are here to implement standards and help the community build, design them. But one of my personal opinions is that we really need to have better bridging mechanism and more standards one, like the AMB and the Polygon, not Polygon, sorry, Optimism one, the cross-chain messenger, are really great in my opinion. They might not be the most powerful, but they are very easy to work with. And maybe we need to standardize that. Maybe it will narrow down. You will need to have maybe other mechanism if you want really to use the entire complexity of a system. But if you want to do simple stuff, you should have a way to do simple stuff. And my also opinion is that a lot of things can be done in the user space. For example, retriable tickets by Arbitrum. It's really nice, but you could just have a contract that tries to do the call, and if it fails, then just set up a flag so that it can be retried. And this could be standardized to work across Arbitrum, Optimism, Polygon, XDAI, whatever. So this is really some place where I think like we need more. I mean, as a power user, as a smart contract developer, I would ask the community to come together and the L2 designer to improve on bridging and on standards. We also have this same opinion about ERC20s. Like Optimism and Arbitrum have basically the same interface, almost the same behavior, but different approaches. And there is a reason for that, is that they designed similar products at the same time and came up with similar solution to some extent. It would have been great if it was the same solution. Maybe it's feasible to just come together and design standards for that. Okay, so that was my take on the Solidity part. As I said, I'm going to be super quick, like way under the 30 minutes I have, so you can all have a drink. But before we end, I just want to say, like, we are really interested in this L2 space. This includes the way that we are having a team growing that is concerned with, that is working on Cairo's contracts. So OpenZeppelin Contracts is no longer just Solidity, it's also Cairo. This was announced a few days ago and released. We also have the OpenZeppelin Wizard that is now starting being compatible with Cairo. So yeah, just we are really interested in this part of the space, and if you think like something is missing or something could be improved, just come and ask us, and it's a part of the ecosystem we want to be more involved in. Those are the links you may want to check. There is also a jobs link somewhere if you want to, and that's it for me. Thank you. If people have questions, yes.
Okay, so we have some time for questions. So let's do 2 or 3 to not keep everybody here forever. So who has a question? Do we have any questions? We have. And then there's someone in the back.
1, 2, 1, 2. Thank you very much. Just wondering, how was the process of you getting adapted to write Cairo?
So you should ask Martin just here after, because he's leading this effort. I personally started doing it a bit. It's, in my opinion, and that's just me speaking, not OpenZeppelin entirely, and definitely not the Cairo team, but it's a young language. It's different in the sense that not having inheritance means that you have to design things differently. Yet it's, I mean, if you have a look at what we already have in Cairo, it's quite a lot. So either our team is very good, or somehow we are able to adapt to the language pretty quickly, maybe a bit of both. But I mean, it's good enough so that we are able to ship things decently fast. We've tried other L2-related languages before with way less success than Cairo. Still a young language and possibly a lot of room for improvement.
Thank you.
Okay, fantastic. Is there...
Maybe Martin, you want to add something to that question?
Just a very, very, very tiny bit on top. So if you're really interested in a practical application of Cairo and how it's possible to build real products on Cairo, there is the talk tomorrow of how we build DeFi 3.0 using Cairo with very practical examples. So feel free to attend.
Okay, great. I know there was a question in the back, right, somewhere?
Okay.
Nice shot.
Okay. So at Maker, we came up with a very similar abstractions that you shown, like this cross-chain enabled things for Optimism and Arbitrum. And you did it for a few other chains. And my question is, what was the weirdest thing or the worst, detail that you found and needed to I don't know, standardize or at least like take into account into some way?
So I can think of 2 things. First is, our first objective was to do, my first objective was to do both sending and receiving. And sending and receiving was quite painful because of the sending part not being like standard. Arbitrum does stuff very differently for a lot of good reasons, but it's really hard to work with.
That was also.
So that's why, for now, we focus on receiving. But just receiving might be hard, and you will say that this is not an L2, but we still want to support Matic or Polygon POS. And some systems are designed around the ability to pass arbitrary messages, like like Optimism, AMB, or just Arbitrum. Polygon is maintaining an ERC20 and ERC721 bridge, but they are not maintaining an arbitrary message bridge, and they provide libraries to do that. But for this library to work, you need to include a lot of bytecode in your smart contract to be able to verify Merkle trees inclusion in L2s, which is kind of a pain. And also, the way it's designed is your contract needs to have external functions. There is an interface that you need to follow. So you cannot just abstract that into a library. You need to inherit function. In my opinion, this is a bad design because it increases the size of every contract that tries to be compatible with that chain. That's why I think we can abstract that through a bridge. And I started deciding a bridge just for Polygon and expanding it, adding retriability. And at some point, I'm thinking like, hey, maybe we should have this bridge for all chains, because for many chain, it will just be a simple wrapper, and so it will be very small bytecode. For other chain, it will just improve the life of all the developers. So yeah, those are my 2 points. Sending is hard, and some L1 bis are not really designed for arbitrary message, and that's a shame.
Okay, and one last question from one lucky guy, and this is you, sir.
Can you do it in 2 hops?
Okay, throw number 1, throw number 2, your question.
Nice. This is, I guess, more directed for you personally, because you probably can't talk about this like broader. I'm kind of like, you've mentioned that like you guys are doing all this standardizing across like EVM compatible chains and our EVM compatible layer 2s, and you're starting with Cairo. Like, do you guys see on like outside of just like mainnet ETH, do you see EVM having this sort of like building this almost like legacy is like perhaps being a bit janky and having like weird things associated with it, but because it was the thing from the start, it continues to like proliferate and new technology gets built using EVM? Or do you expect to see more and more like layer 2s start to like branch out and do their own thing, if you will?
So I'm not sure I'm the right person to answer that question. I remember talking with Jordi, that's going to speak tomorrow, I think, during LCC. And yeah, EVM compatibility is possibly very hard to do when you're doing ZK stuff, and that's why Cairo exists. There are possibly better options. We are not deciding how L2s are built or pushing for different direction. Obviously, I mean, what I'm saying is that, yeah, we are not L2 designers. We are Solidity and smart contract power users that are making stuff easier for other developers on the line. So we'll adapt to the ecosystem. We are adapting by going to Cairo. When stuff is EVM compatible, it's easier for us. It's harder for you. When it's not EVM compatible, we try to do our best, and it really depends then on the bandwidth we have, possibly the funding, even though that's not a real issue, and the demand from the users. So I don't know how the execution space will be like in a few years. I mean, a few years ago, we were thinking of WASM-powered shards. I mean, I don't know where that is going, but possibly not the case. So yeah, a few years ago, I would have bet that OpenZeppelin would have gone the WASM way, and it's definitely not happening, at least not now. So we'll see. Possibly, like, we will adapt to what the best L2s and chains are and where the demand is, and provide products and services for these chains. This includes like having the auditors understand that space and provide solutions on the auditing space, and also adapting our contracts and our defender services.
Fantastic. Please, everybody, one last round of applause.